Apostasy in Islam is said to carry the death penalty. Then why was Ibn al-Rawandi, a Muslim apostate who wrote entire books criticizing Islam, never killed? Let's dive in to understand this more closely. Ibn al-Rawandi was a well-respected theologian in Baghdad in the 9th century. At some point in his life, he became an atheist, denying revelation, mocking prophethood, and boldly rejecting the Quran in his writings. Contrary to what many believe about Islam today, Ibn al-Rawandi was never imprisoned, persecuted, or silenced. And yet, he lived freely among Muslim scholars, debated publicly, and died at nearly 90 years old. And Ibn al-Rawandi was not the only one. The Islamic Golden Age was full of intellectuals who questioned, doubted, and even left the religion, yet lived in Muslim societies without fear. One such figure was Abu Isa al-Warraq, a 9th century scholar in Baghdad. Like Ibn al-Rawandi, he rejected revelation, denied prophecy, and wrote sharp critiques of all Abrahamic religions, including Islam. He was culturally Muslim but an apostate in belief, and still he was never harmed. His works were debated, not banned. His mind was challenged, not silenced. This shows that Islam at its height did not just tolerate questions, it thrived on them. Apostasy was not a matter of policing thoughts or beliefs. It was only punished when tied to active treason, when someone betrayed the community during war or incited rebellion. That distinction matters because even today nations like the United States maintain the death penalty, not for disbelief, but for treason. Under United States federal law, aiding an enemy or waging war against the state can lead to execution. And it is not theoretical. People like Aaron Dwight Stevens, William Mumford, and the Rosenbergs were all executed, not for their beliefs, but for betraying their countries. So if even modern democracies distinguish between private belief and political betrayal, why are Muslims vilified when early Islamic law did the same? The Quran itself says, "Let whoever wills believe, and let whoever wills disbelieve," and there is no compulsion in religion. Faith in Islam must be sincere, not forced. And even in cases where scholars ruled apostasy as a crime, it was never enforced by mobs. It was the role of courts, and punishment was tied to open rebellion, not to someone quietly doubting or changing faith. The problem is not Islam. The problem is how it has been distorted. What many Muslims don't realize is just how deeply Wahhabism has hijacked the public image of Islam. It took a religion rooted in mercy, wisdom, and persuasion, and rebranded it as something harsh, rigid, and coercive. By stripping Islam of its intellectual depth and spiritual richness, Salafi Wahhabi ideology created a version of the faith that leaves no room for nuance or disagreement. And whether knowingly or not, this distortion has handed Islam's enemies exactly what they need. It gave Islamophobes the perfect material to paint Islam as intolerant, when in truth, the problem isn't Islam, it's the version of it that was weaponized in recent centuries. But this is not the Islam of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. It is not the Islam of Baghdad's scholars or Andalusia's libraries. It is a modern ideology that replaced thought with force. Islam, at its core, was never afraid of questions, as its foundations was built on truth and intellectual courage. Ibn al-Rawandi lived to nearly 90 years old, not because his views were accepted, but because classical Islamic scholars upheld a tradition where false ideas were defeated through argument, not coercion. If you found this valuable, repost and follow for more. Let us bring clarity back to our tradition.